Welcome to Wrestle Wolf. I am Damian Gibson. This is Reconsidering WCW Nitro, episode 6. And joining me, as always, is the mystery, the enigma. It's Matthew.
Hi, how you going?
I'm good, man. You okay?
You were really taken aback by me saying hello and asking how you were.
No, your tone was so kind of like upbeat and gentle before we started recording, and then that was quite sort of efficient to the point. I was a bit taken aback by it.
Well, I just think it's the sort of like global coming together, the holding hands, the we're all in this together thing. Where I'm like, just want to check that everything's cool before we get started talking about wrestling from 25.
That's fair enough. That is completely fair enough. I did that to a friend today, actually, who works in the arts and doesn't have a job at the moment, and so I just checked in on him, and he asked if I was okay. You know what I mean? Because it's just not something that you usually do. You know, like especially with guys and stuff, you don't just out of the blue go, "Hey, man, you okay?" Doesn't happen very often, and so I did that today, thinking I was like this great friend, and it just became this weird, awkward social interaction where he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." He thought I was reaching out to him, but I was anyway.
Right now, he's sitting there going, "Oh God, I wish I had handled that better." Like he's obviously not really coping. Should I call him? It'd be weird if I called him.
I should probably call him.
Anyway, keep us updated if he calls back.
I will. I'll let you guys know on the next episode. He just sits in his study talking to someone called the Mystery about wrestling. I don't know what. I think he's having a nervous breakdown.
I wish we had workshopped my name before starting this. I feel like I could have come up with a really cool one.
We can still chat. We're only in episode 6, you know.
Yeah, I might try out some new names. Mostly based around Max Muscle, who's not on this episode, but see what we can do.
Yeah, man. Look, whatever you want to be called. It's 2020. You tell me what you want to be called, and we'll make it happen. We have the technology. We are in as Eric screams into our earballs this week. We are in the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. This episode was, well, I don't know if it was, oh no, it's live. So it was filmed on the 16th of October, 1995. And the guys, we see them, the lights come up, and the guys are having a bit of fun, Matthew. They're got their backs to the camera, and it's like they didn't realize that the camera was behind them, and they're talking to the audience, and then eventually Mongo realizes that they're not facing the camera properly, and he picks up Eric and turns him around so Eric can continue to do his intro. And they're also wearing some Chicago Bears shirts because they're in Chicago. And it's the 10-year anniversary of a Super Bowl win. That's basketball, right? Super Bowl.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about anything other than wrestling. All I know is this had nothing to do with wrestling. I don't know if this joke was good in 25 years ago. Sometimes comedy ages poorly. I'm going to give it. Maybe this was really topical and really clever back then.
Before people start adding me, that was a poor attempt at a joke. I know that the Super Bowl is obviously what you win when you win the NHL. So every week we're trying to distance our American listeners. I feel really bad. Anyway, Eric announces that the Hulk's here. Thank God, because God, what were we going to talk about if Hulk wasn't here? And now I was a little confused. Bobby announces that he also knows that the Hulk is there, which is good. It's good that everyone knows the Hulk's there. But he knows something that Eric and Mongo don't know, which is a restraining order has been put on. But he doesn't say who. So
doesn't matter.
What do you mean?
Well, I didn't even notice. So clearly it worked for me. I was like, someone's put a restraining order on Hulk Hogan and he can't get into the building.
Well, no, but that's what I thought initially. But then I was like, no. It has to be, the restraining order has to have been put on the giant and the Taskmaster because they shaved the Hulk's mustache off.
Yeah, and the I don't want to describe the attachment to the mustache later on, but it gets really unhinged about how important this mustache is. Like
Really
really unhinged.
Also, while this is going on, the Stinger is back, wearing the US title that looks so nice. I don't know if you had a good look at it, but it's a really pretty belt. A lot of talk about US titles and what they look like in the last couple of weeks, and WWE could do a lot worse than just revert to this Sting version of the US title. It's really pretty, not gaudy, like fits Sting perfectly. He looks like a champion wearing it.
WWE could do a lot worse than doing a lot of the things WCW were doing.
Yeah, man. I don't have to talk about WWE until Sunday, so I'm just going to leave that there. And he says, I don't know if he's a licensed counselor, but he says that he's going to get Macho Man and Lex Luger, who have been having some real problems the last couple of weeks, out into the ring, and he's going to sort this out one way or another. It just really reminded me of the way my mum used to speak to my sister and myself when we were about 12 and 10, respectively. And we were hitting each other with, whatever we could get our hands on. You two are going to sit here and resolve this until you're not going anywhere until this is resolved. And the Sting really had that kind of vibe about him in this promo.
Well, I really liked, so he sort of wanders out while they're still at the announce table, and like Bischoff straight away is saying, get him a mic and stuff. So it just sort of, it really feeds into that idea that you just don't know what's going to happen on Nitro.
Mm. No, I actually noticed that as well. And is this the second or third week in a row where someone's come out and interrupted?
It's definitely the second.
We'll see a lot more of this. This is going to happen so much. It is, for me, really interesting to see how, like, the germs of, because I feel like the NWO era is sort of like burnt into my subconscious, and I don't really, I feel like I was watching it this time, but I don't really remember a lot of it. So it's interesting for me to see the seeds of what would essentially become Nitro tropes appearing, like
the
intro being interrupted by someone. And
yeah, I think it's like absolutely fascinating to see how they're sort of doing these things that would work out really, really well in about 10 months, and they're sort of maybe a little bit undercooked at this point.
Yeah, there's a moment with Hulk later on that I really want to talk about in regards to that. But we cut to the ring, and the Shark, who I don't know how you're going to feel about this, Matt, because you are the Dungeon of Doom aficionado on the podcast, but I think the Shark might be my favorite member of Dungeon of Doom.
Oh, look, that is a fundamentally stupid thing to say. I have no problem.
He's a shark. He's terrifying.
He's not. Let's be very, very clear.
You know what I love about the Shark, right? Is that even his like sort of what's the best way of describe it? Like, Fitzroy Primary School hippie market child face paint that he has of a shark is so bad. Like, it's D grade. I assume he's just doing it himself. I assume this is just old school 80s.
Yeah, I don't think
they don't have hair and makeup people doing this for him.
No, I don't think this is a professional job for the Shark. I just like how much they sell. Like every single thing that the announcers say is like a vicious shark attack in the ring. The shark's circling him. The shark can smell blood. It's like, do they realize he's not an actual shark? And if he was an actual shark, he'd be dead because he's in a wrestling ring. He's just a quite overweight man being beaten on by a surfy guy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do. At least they're trying to put him over, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's a terrible gimmick, but they're still as good commentators do selling the gimmick, no matter how dumb it is.
It's a
You know what I
vicious
mean?
shark attack.
I wrote that down that that Mongo's like lets us know that there's a mean shark in the ring and the Sting better watch out.
As compared to
But
those
that's
nice sharks. Like, I wish Mongo really had have gone more in depth. He's like, I was hoping the shark would be a gummy, but unfortunately it's a great white and it's hungry today.
the shark is John Tenter, isn't it?
Yeah, former
Yeah.
sumo wrestler.
Yeah. And was he Earthquake in WWF?
He was Earthquake, yes. The
Yeah.
natural disasters with Tugboat. Or was it
He
Typhoon? Sorry, Typhoon. I just had
Typhoon, no, the match. Yeah. Because Typhoon became Tugboat later on. Is that right?
Tugboat is a very depressing idea for a gimmick, isn't it?
I know.
Like, what's the
That's
least threatening kind of ship?
I know it's not even the most threatening ship.
It's like a Thomas the Tank Engine character. And then Tugboat came. I can't do. I'm not going to do accents. They could be misconstrued.
You're called Tugboat, said the psycho chairman. Now, for all of yous, I'm from Broadmeadows. For all of you who are looking for a 60-minute Ric Flair slobber knocker, well, you're not getting it because this match goes for about 2 minutes. And after Sting hits 2 stinger splashes, the Shark's done. So this was...
And he gets the win off a flying crossbody, which I'm like really into. I think wins happening in transitional moves gives reasons for wrestlers to, when they're facing someone more important, to like hit a flying crossbody and go for the pin. Like it just creates logic. Of course he should, like the Sting should beat the Shark with a flying crossbody. Like he shouldn't have to, hit 10 dirty deeds off the giant casino chip or whatever.
You got really close to slagging off Dean Ambrose, as you call him. He's going to catch up with you one day, man. You're in deep shit. Next, we get a wonderful recap of Hulk Hogan being attacked by Terry Jones from The Life of Brian, and the giant breaks his neck all over again, and then shaves off his mustache, which Mungo is really upset about. I don't know if you noticed this, Matthew, but he's been growing it for 25 years.
He's never trimmed it himself.
I know.
Like, obviously, he must have been doing a movie. Like, that's the only thing that makes sense, right?
This was around I don't know if this was around the time, because from what I know, and this might be completely wrong, but wasn't he doing a TV show in Florida at the time, and then that worked out well for him to be able to go to WCW because they were going to film in Orlando for a bit or something, and that's why he signed on.
And that's why, yes, of course, because he sort of transitioned out of wrestling and became a massive TV star, and that's why people know him now. They know him as
no, but the TV show was awful, but it was like set on boats in the Florida swamplands or so. He was essentially like I think he was a cop. It was meant to be like a Miami Vice type thing.
Thunder in Paradise?
Yes. That's it. But is that now or is that later on? I think that might be later on.
No, that's now. That is now. My God.
So I think the mustache came off for that.
What a
this is a controversial opinion. I think he looks better without the mustache.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
But anyway, he'd been growing it for 25 years, so it's a tragedy that it had been shaved off by the evil Taskmaster. There's an ad for Halloween Havoc where we're told that there are 2 parts of the giant Hulk blow-off. And the rules of the monster truck match, which I know looms very large in your legend, Matt, is that one of the monster trucks has to push another monster truck more than 100 yards. I'm not sure how any of this is measured. I don't know whether this is what happens at monster truck rallies, but this is what's happening.
This is not a monster truck rally. To be clear, this is a professional wrestling match where the men become a machine, and then we'll eventually transition back to men. I just need to go back because I've IMDb'd Thunder in Paradise.
Cool.
And Hulk Hogan played, and this is such a 90s thing. He didn't just have like a name. He wasn't just like, John Pember. He was Randolph J. Hurricane Spencer.
Is Hurricane Spencer hyphenated?
It is,
or is that his
it's his nickname. So he's Hurricane.
That's his
Spencer,
nickname, right?
At some
he
other
comes
point,
into like a hurricane,
and he's Randolph J. Spencer, but he got Hurricane. I'm assuming I'm gonna put out a guess here. I reckon he might have been involved in the army in the past.
Right. Okay.
Just a guess. Anyway, tune in on Wednesday nights for our Thunder in Paradise podcast.
Oh God, I don't even think I could handle that. I watch a lot of shit TV. I don't think I could watch Thunder in Paradise. Maybe one day we'll do like a watch along of one episode or something as like some sort of special bonus content or something. I could handle that like as a one-off. I could do it, but it didn't go for very long, did it? So it'd be a short mini series for us if we were to do it.
Look, it went for too long to do
it. And so that happens, and then we get a proper match for the belt. So it kind of makes the monster truck match inconsequential to what happens later on in the pay-per-view.
Why it's happening is I assume that Hulk Hogan wants revenge for the giant monster trucking over his motorbike unnecessarily. How this is actual revenge, I don't know.
That was given to him by fans from Cavalier Harley Davidson's Los Angeles
Orange County
Sunset Boulevard. Yeah, that's it.
It'll be great.
I'm surprised they didn't get another payola ad in there, because all those guys did. Later on we'll see all those guys are massive bike heads. Like, they love motorbikes and stuff. So it is so obviously blatant payola to just constantly mention these Harley Davidson stores.
And
sorry, man, you go.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, next up we've got Sabu. He's back again.
Finally, after serving whatever kind of suspension, or whether he was away, whether he didn't show up, whatever the hell it was, he's great. He's so good. He's like he's sorry. Yeah. It's against Mr. JL.
Yeah. Who I don't know. I don't really know anything about. Can you fill some blanks in for me, because I don't know anything about him.
So Jerry Lynn, it's Jerry Lynn, who has wrestled sort of everywhere. He was in WCW for a few years. He went to ECW for ages. He was ECW champion,
right,
for a couple of months, in sort of right at the end. And he was also Ring of Honor champion, but once again for a couple of months. Like he was sort of that sort of guy that was good, but wasn't, I think in Ring of Honor, he was in between. I think he beat Nigel McGuinness and he lost to Austin Aries.
Right.
So he was and it was a couple of months. He was in TNA for a while. He was part of that really, really successful. The thing that sort of got TNA to sort of where it is now as the sort of number 1A wrestling company in the world, which is the Hardcore Invasion, where they couldn't call themselves ECW. They were Extreme Violence 2.0, and they didn't really have as many of the stars, and the stars that they did have were 10 to 15 years out of shape.
Right.
Yeah, so he was part of that. He's probably one of the better parts of that, and I'm pretty sure I could look it up, but I'm not going to. I'm relatively sure he works for All Elite Wrestling as a producer now.
Yeah, right.
So he's legit. He's really good, but this character of him sort of in a full body luchador suit is not doesn't give him an opportunity to shine.
He took some big bumps in this match. I wouldn't say the match was exactly a squash match.
No,
but it was definitely booked to make Sabu look crazy, but also strong.
And the crowd were really behind Sabu, like as in like they would. He continued the attack after the bell, and the crowd were cheering him.
Yeah, well, he wins with a camel clutch and then proceeds to beat the hell out of Mr. JL. But we can't watch that, Matthew, because it's time to talk about Hulk again. And it cuts to the boys at the desk, and the crowd
happened to Sabu.
Yeah. Oh, well, dude, to be fair, it happens to everybody. I mean, no, like Arn and Rick cop it real bad later on in the episode. But it cuts to the boys of the commentary and they're doing their, I mean, I was thinking about this because we hang a lot of shit on Hulk and the way that, WCW book Hulk, especially right now. But it kind of, from a TV point of view, it does sort of make sense, right? Like he's the star of the show, and the show only goes for an hour. So I think most people flicking through, like you can tell each segment they mention Hulk Hogan. I think it's a very deliberate, thing to be like, make sure you mention Hulk Hogan every 5 minutes, because if someone's just flicking through and they hear Hulk Hogan, they're likely to stick around rather than Sabu, I'm not having a go at Sabu. Like, I would much prefer to sort of watch Sabu wrestle than Hulk. But I get it from Eric Bischoff's standpoint of like, the reason why we pay all this money to Hulk Hogan is because people want to watch Hulk Hogan. So let's just keep pushing that as much as possible.
Yeah. And look, I think it makes absolute perfect sense. But it also can be relatively frustrating.
It is. I mean, it's mental. It really is.
Ric Flair, who was WWF World Champion not that long ago. They've got people like arguably, if people were flipping around and saw a guy like Sabu like leaping off the ring apron onto a chair, onto a human being, 25 years ago, they might have stayed around to see what the hell was going on. But
yeah.
Anyway, we get to hear about Hulk Hogan, so I'm happy.
Well, I think Eric's thing is like, well, have the action happening, but make sure you're talking about Hulk, because then, anyway, I find it just as annoying. But I mean, from a business standpoint, I think it kind of makes sense, so they're talking about Hulk Hogan, and then it cuts back to the ring, and Sting's in the ring with Mean Gene, who we don't see that much of in this episode. And he wants to talk to Lex, but he won't talk to Lex until he brings out Macho Man. And of course, we have to have Macho Man's entrance because that's the Macho Man and rules. Then once he gets out there, Sting's trying to say to Lex and Macho Man, hey, like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like Dungeon of Doom are beating us on every possible angle at the moment.
And this is like a big deal because Sting hasn't been around for 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, he basically just hasn't been on Nitro. So for him to be like, guys, I've been sitting at home watching. Like, you guys are, we got to get on the same page here, friends. They have a series of undead monsters and the Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
The man from Yin and Yang, which is not a place. And Macho Man, of course, accuses Sting of being in the Dungeon of Doom. I don't think Macho Man knows who's in the Dungeon of Doom. To Macho Man, everyone's in the Dungeon of Doom.
If you were Macho Man and you were earning what he was earning at that stage and at that stage of his career and looking at people dressed like that, you probably wouldn't care either.
But he does care. That's the thing. He cares intensely. He gets in Sting's face and he's like, how come the giant has How come the giant hasn't attacked you? And as you've said, Matthew, he hasn't been on Nitro for 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's like a pretty easy thing for Sting to answer, I would have thought, because I'm not on the show. Like, he's not coming to my house, if that's what you're asking.
He's not. He's not Stone Cold or Bryan Pillman.
Lex Luger, by the way,
So-
is wearing sort of like a captain's jacket, but the kind of captain's jacket that like a sort of like disco, like Captain and Tennille would wear. Like, it's not a real captain's jacket. It makes it very clear that he considers himself an important sort of standout person, but but it's also clear he's not really the captain, and if the boat did start sinking, he would be able to leave and maintain his dignity.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would turn into a flotation device, that jacket. I mean, just the size of it. The amount of material to cover those shoulders is off the chain.
Is Lex Luger once again our 5 weeks in a row weekly worst?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Sting, I like the fact that these promos aren't scripted and they go off a little bit because, I don't know, it feels more real when people sort of stumble over their words at times. But Macho Man's role is to be like, I don't trust anyone. So basically, once Macho Man says he doesn't trust anyone, Sting just books Halloween Havoc. He basically just says, Macho Man, you're fighting some dude from Dungeon of Doom. Lex Luger, you're fighting some dude from Dungeon of Doom. You'll both win. And then when you do, you two will have to wrestle each other for the number one contenders spot, basically, for the belt, because we all want to win the belt, which has sort of been a very loose storyline amongst Macho Man, Sting, and Lex Luger.
Whereas I want someone in the Dungeon of Doom to win the belt.
Well, yeah. I mean, I genuinely can't remember.
I think Zodiac picks it up at one of the pay-per-views against Hulk. I think he gets his big win back.
Zodiac does. Well, it makes sense. I mean, he's obviously a crowd favorite.
Yeah,
is the Bret Hart of WCW as far as technical wrestling is concerned. So, of course, he covers all.
Don't worry about wrestling. He's the Jesus of WCW wrestling.
So this was pretty convoluted because then Lex gets sort of like antsy about having to have another match, even though the whole storyline is that everyone wants the belt, right? Lex is like, but I've already got a match at Halloween Havoc, and now you're booking me another match, which, to be fair, I would be like that. You know what I mean? I'd be like, who are you? You're just a wrestler. You don't get to decide these things. And I already had a match at Halloween Havoc. Like, I know you're my mate, but fuck off. Like, get out of my face. And then Sting just completely like flips out on him and is like, hey, I've been sticking up for you all over the place, but now that you won't do what I'm saying, I'm angry with you. That's essentially what happens at this promo.
But also, it's like, it's not just saying like, oh, I'm gonna have to, like, who knows if I'm gonna make it past this one? It's gonna be really hard. It's like, I reckon Lex Luger like is gonna make pretty quick work of the Shark or like, the Zodiac or Meng.
I don't know. I don't know if he's up against the Shark, man.
I think he's gonna get there. I think he's gonna be A-okay.
Is the Shark my new Johnny B. Bad?
I hope so.
I think he might be. I do jump onto new wrestlers pretty quickly and then be obsessed with them for like a month and then move on to the next wrestler.
I'm not sure you're going to get enough. I'm not sure you're going to get enough the Shark to get really onto the Shark.
Yeah, Sharky action. Oh well.
Shark attacks.
So basically, we have almost made this as confusing as the promo was, but I mean, it's hard because this promo was all over the place. So now we've got 2 matches set up at Halloween Havoc, and if Macho Man and Lex Luger win, they go into a number one contenders match, and then whoever wins that's it. No more arguing, I think is what Sting's saying.
Yep, great. If we get to see less of this, I am A+ with Booker Sting.
Yeah. Next up, we're introduced to Chris Benoit, who has they make a pretty big deal. Like this is like a little vignette, shows him coming up in a limousine. He gets out of the limousine. Eric says he's come all the way from Japan to compete against the best. Chris Benoit and does look. I mean, Benoit wasn't the best of actors. You know what I mean? I mean, this is.
No,
I mean,
that's
there's
what
a lot of things you
I'm.
can say about Chris Benoit, but
To be fair, I think at this point, when you're watching it, if you're thinking, "Huh, he's not that good an actor," that's great. That's amazing. That's probably the best you could think of at this point. I mean, it
yeah,
does, even though, given that the general purpose of this is to complain about the fact that WCW has been unfairly maligned. Chris Benoit is a very good, in fact, potentially the living embodiment of that, because he is someone that hasn't been over in WWF. They make him out to be this huge world conquering star. In a couple of years, he's going to be the champion. It's pretty hard to make the argument that they didn't do right by him.
WCW.
Yes.
Yeah, no, they put. I mean, this would be you would be if you were Chris Benoit, you'd be very happy with this. Besides your own acting, you'd be happy with this introduction. Gotta say that there's this weird. We're in 1995, and wrestlers are renowned. We talk about this on all of our podcasts. Wrestlers are renowned for being anywhere between 5 and 7 years behind popular culture. So much so that sometimes it's like it's cool again. You know what I mean? Like Bryan Pillman Jr.'s mullet right now is sick. But it's also like not cool. But it's so not cool that it's cool. You know what I mean? The fact that Ricky Starks is dressed like, someone from a Wayne's film from the early 90s is also a similar kind of thing. And Chris Benoit's mullet in this is so 1987, it's not funny. I mean, it's hilarious, but it's so big, man.
Well, I
It
mean,
looks permed.
you've got Bobby Heenan making like Flash Gordon references and talking like playing 2 Up or whatever. So it's nice to come back in, even though we're in 1995. It's nice to go back to 1987 for a little while. Go forward.
I was transported straight back there as soon as he got out of the limousine. It is a. How do you wrestle in that thing? You know what I mean? It must be weighing down his head. How are you going to do a flying headbutt with that thing stuck on the back of your head?
Dangerous.
I can't wait to see this. I know. It'd add an extra 15 kilos to the weight of his head.
I mean, you can't wait to see this. I'm going to go on the record right now and say I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy a single one of these serious head injuries we witness Chris Benoit take on a regular.
Shit, I didn't think about that.
I'm
just trying to entertain the people. I do not in any way condone. You guys know what I mean. Next up, we got Disco Inferno, that little scamp, and he's up to his usual shenanigans. He can't dance. I don't remember. I remember him being able to do some of that, like John Travolta finger pointing dancing. He can't even do that. But anyway, he's in the middle
about how these sort of tropes of Nitro sort of develop, and we're seeing the really early things they would do with different people later and really work. Bischoff's like, he's not on the roster. He's not supposed to be here. And I'm like, this is the Outsiders, just with some guy disco dancing. The original Nitro invasion.
Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. But I mean he's more of a comedy wrestler, at this stage. They talk about a couple of so we see Big Bubba come out, which is Big Boss Man. Most people would know him as Big Boss Man. He comes out, we're still wearing his weird sort of like Chicago 1930s gangster style.
I don't understand.
I think that's how he's meant to be dressed up as.
I don't understand what his character is. Why he's called Big Bubba? It must be a gangster thing. I don't know. It doesn't he doesn't get any time to develop his character, so who the fuck knows?
There was, when I was a kid, there were Big Bubba lolly cigars, and on the wrapper there was like a gangster.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a is he is it from that
Is he a reference to the lollies, or were the lollies a reference to him?
to an Australian lolly from the mid-80s?
Well, I think we've unraveled that little mystery.
Another mystery solved here on Reconsidering. Look, the long and the short of this is that Big Bubba's not really involved in this at all. Road Warrior Hawk comes out, and Disco grabs someone's hat out of the crowd and pops it on one of his spikes on his armor, which Road Warrior Hawk gets very angry about. The match starts.
Fury.
He's really angry. The match starts, and then Disco can't help himself. He comes out and starts doing some of his just awful dancing. And then Hawk gets really upset, chases him out of the ring, beats him down, and then forgets that the match was happening and gets counted out. So that's a Saturday night not main event. That's a Saturday. What do they call their Saturday night?
WCW Saturday Night.
Oh. Anyway, well, that's a Saturday night feud that we won't be dealing with, I'm pretty sure.
Nope.
Next up, it's time for Poochie. Who's Poochie? Well, we all know who Poochie is. It's Hulk Hogan. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. He's all dressed in black, including the neck brace, which, like chef's kiss. The black neck brace is beautiful. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in this promo that I didn't really quite understand. Like Vince gets mentioned, New York gets mentioned.
The promoter in New York. He just like he's just absolutely rambling about him for who knows what reason.
Yeah, it feels like a really long time as well. He talks about how he'll wrestle and beat Gorgeous George in heaven.
I wrote down 2 quotes from what I like to call the original pipe bomb, which is what this is. When he's talking about his mustache getting shaved off, he goes, "They might as well have put graffiti on the Washington Monument. They might as well have burned the US flag." And I was like, wow, that is, you are taking this very, very seriously.
Even Mean Gene goes, "Well, now, steady on, old chap."
And then he goes, "The last thing I'll do with my immortality is beat Gorgeous George in heaven." I'm like, what does that mean? Like, first of all, you're immortal, and you're saying the last thing you will do with that immortality is something that doesn't make any sense for like various reasons. Like, if you're immortal, you can't go to your heaven to beat Gorgeous George. And you can't, like, cash in bits of immortality as, like, I'm going to use some of my immortality on beating Gorgeous George. Also, Gorgeous George is dead and not someone that Hulk Hogan is feuding with currently on the WCW roster.
No, but in heaven he is. So he called him out. He called his shot, you know?
Wow. Will Gorgeous George... Well, Gorgeous George will feature in WCW at some point, as Macho Man owns the name Gorgeous George, and his girlfriend, who at the time, who it's absolutely not unfair to refer to as a softcore porn star, as that's what she was, portrays Gorgeous George. So maybe Hulk Hogan is talking about defeating Macho Man's future girlfriend. For some reason, that's also in heaven.
So this is future Hulk Hogan, who's coming back to call out future Macho Man's girlfriend, Gorgeous George.
Yes, which I believe still makes more sense than anything else.
We should write wrestling. Also, like, I don't want to pose a philosophical question on the podcast, but when does immortality end, Hulk? You really made me think with that one, you know, at the end of his immortality.
That's an interesting point, because maybe he's saying the last thing he'll do with his immortality is beat Gorgeous George in heaven just before Earth and heaven and all the other planets are sucked into a black hole, and he'll spend the rest of immortality just floating around some distant universe, unable to do anything with his immortality other than float.
Maybe he's talking about the concept that the universe is expanding so quickly that human existence and consciousness can't actually comprehend it. So eventually, once it does get comprehended, that we will all just disappear into nothingness.
Maybe. I mean, or maybe he's on cocaine.
Another mystery solved. Cocaine's a hell of a drug. Yeah, I referenced Chappelle's show. It's 2004.
Oh, wow, you really are on the wrestling timeline.
I know. I'm the coolest wrestler around. I'm really into.
Don't be mad about you referencing Chris Benoit earlier, because you just don't know what's coming. So
I don't. I'm really into Chappelle's show and the Arctic Monkeys. That's my, you know what I mean? That's that's actually true.
You're sort of picking bands that have released good albums recently. It's like, I
Yeah,
really
no,
like the Strokes.
I said that.
Like,
yeah.
Now it's the 2 times you can like the Strokes.
Yeah, as soon as I said Arctic Monkeys, I was like, oh, actually, their last album is probably like one of my most favorite albums of all time. So it's anyway, so while Hulk is going on this, is dropping, the original pipe bomb, we hear a engine revving, and it's not Butcher and the Blade. It is it's the Dungeon of Doom. We've got the Taskmaster, we've got the Giant. We've got Zodiac hanging out up on the top of this monster truck, and they get to the arena in Chicago, and 3 men stop them from driving into the arena. Why you wouldn't just drive forward into the arena, I don't know.
I mean,
but
why you really shows your mentality of like, well, my car is bigger than them and therefore can kill them.
I'm talking in relation of like bad guys. Like they're meant to be bad guys. What? Like they come screaming.
They're not going to murder security guards.
Why not? They're the Dungeon of Doom. I'm not saying murder them. Say like you just keep going so they have to get out of the way.
All right. You know how you said last time that you'd be willing to. There was some wrestling move that you were interested in taking. Next,
this was on our AEW podcast where I said if it made us famous, I would let Matt Hardy smash my head into a garage door.
Well, next week, live on our WCW show, you'll be run over by a monster truck.
No, but I wouldn't be run over because it's a giant fucking truck, and I would see that it was coming, and I would run out of the way like a sensible person. I wouldn't stand in front of a monster truck and say stop. Especially when Zodiac is on the roof of the thing. Like, as soon as you saw the monster truck coming towards you with the Giant hanging out the window, the Taskmaster out the other window, and the Zodiac on the roof of the thing, you just run as far. Like, I don't get paid enough to deal with whatever this is.
Well, clearly those 3 people are getting paid extremely well. They're like, I like Hogan's protection.
So, Hulk's like, let him in. And Mean Gene's saying, no, they can't be let in. And then Hulk says, well, if they can't be let in, I'm going to go out and confront them.
Why does Hulk Hogan hate the law so much?
Well, it's because he's wearing all black. He's an outlaw, he's an anti-hero.
He's not.
He is CM Punk, essentially. I'm pretty sure this is where CM Punk got his inspiration from.
It's disgusting to watch like Hulk Hogan essentially be trademark infringed when CM Punk, whenever he does it.
There's another wrestler that's going to hate us. So we should never go to a wrestling con, or like we should never go anywhere near any wrestler ever.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the main event, and it's Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson again, but this time it's in a cage. Once again, essentially the commentators talk about Hulk Hogan throughout the majority of this match. Of course, it's Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, so it's a good match. I was interested in watching it, but really, they just keep talking about, oh, Hulk's going out to the truck and blah 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 blah. I would be really upset if I was Rick or Arn at this stage, which I think it's pretty well known that they were. But yeah, I mean, in the end, Ric Flair goes for the figure four leg lock. Arn gets him with a knuckle duster, which I assume I must have missed it, but Pillman slipped in the knuckle dusters.
Threw it in.
Yeah, gets the win. We pan away from the match. It goes to the guys on the commentary team, and then Rick appears on the commentary dais and basically says, I've had enough. Next week, Pillman and Anderson, you're up against me. I'm going to scour the earth for a tag team partner. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Chris Benoit, but like the guy who just arrived at WCW earlier in the episode. So I don't think he's going to have to look too hard. But and yeah, that match is set for next week. And also we can tick off Pepe watch here, who's dressed up in a little Chicago Bears outfit.
Which makes sense for some reason.
You know that we've been doing this podcast for a little bit now when we're like, oh yeah. And Pepe was wearing a Chicago Bears outfit.
I feel like at some point Mongo's going to transition to being a wrestler. And I don't think he took the dog out with him. And I think I'm going to miss Pepe.
Yeah, I'm going to miss Pepe as well.
Well, that's all we got time for.
What a sad note to end on.
Well, Pepe's dead now. Up with gorgeous George in heaven.
Hulkster's like, I'm going to spend the end of my mortality wrestling Pepe. These episodes are, I mean, they're not completely crazy, but there is a part of me every week when I watch it where I'm like, I can't believe that this was national primetime television. You know what I mean? There's times where it's like, it's so, like that promo between Sting and Macho Man and Lex Luger, there's no cohesion. It's all over the place. Like, this was TV.
This was TV, and it's like it's so weird watching them back, where you sort of like we've talked about before, sort of knowing like being like, oh wow, like Sabu could have been like a main event heel, like at least have a run against someone like Hulk, like that would be really cool. But it's also weird watching it back and seeing Hulk Hogan and being like, oh man, things are gonna like. You're going to get filmed having sex with your best friend's wife and being racist at the same time. Like things aren't going to work out for you, brother. No. You know, I use that example, a more obvious example from this episode of unforeseeable things to happen. But like it's you know, all of them. It's like, except for Eric Bischoff, and who you're like, oh yeah, 2 weeks ago he was on primetime TNT on a wrestling show.
Yeah, Sting has an okay life these days. He's like a football coach, like is part of a football program. Yeah, like he's a fitness dude.
Oh, fair enough.
And works for a college football team. And his son is like a gun football player who's like on the verge or has just been drafted in the NFL. So like, and he's he seems to have a relatively normal life for an ex-wrestling superstar.
Yeah. Well, it's like you're watching it though, and you're like, okay, well, like Hulk Hogan's like absolutely cancelled. Lex Luger,
everybody else on this episode.
Yeah. Lex Luger killed Miss Elizabeth with his drug addiction and her drug addiction. And now he's a Christian preacher. Like going through this episode, things are like the Giant has done for someone that seems extremely unhinged. To be honest, at this stage, a Giant's done pretty well for himself. Just has a stupid Netflix show that no one should watch, and
that's those I mean, we're really getting off on tangents now, but those that Big Show, and there's like some big crossover thing with like 4 or 5 Netflix sitcoms I didn't even know existed. That's like the level of comedy in those is like beneath like Saved by the Bell. Like it's so white bread, bubblegum, safe. Oh, it's atrocious. But anyway, I mean, he's, I assume he's doing well. But yeah, there's not, there aren't a lot of good news stories out of this episode, 20, 25 years down the track.
No, there's not. But anyway, Pepe's dead. Goodbye. That's our sign off for every episode from now on. Remember, everyone, Pepe's dead. Catch you next week. Yeah, I don't even want to do the proper outro anymore. I think that's perfect. Pepe's dead. You know what I mean? A good news story is us. A lot of people are listening to us, and we want to thank you guys for that. If you like what we're doing, tell more people about it. You can rate and review us, or you can subscribe on YouTube. You can follow us on social media. We are WrestleWolfPod on all of the socials. We're WrestleWolfPodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us an email to complain or, or whatever it may be. Yeah, we should probably leave that there, man. We'll be back next week with Reconsidering WCW Nitro episode 7. Goodbye.
See ya. Pepe's dead.